Guys, so earlier, this started circulating around the internet today. I don't know exactly when it was recorded, but it was fairly recent. Barack Obama, to the surprise of nobody, has endorsed Joe Biden. And you might be thinking, Ron, why would we bother talking about that? We knew Barack Obama was going to endorse Joe Biden. How is that? Here's the deal. The endorsement was pretty funny. It's a pretty, I watched a little bit of it and I was like, oh, come on. This is just really, this is it. We got to watch this. I mean, it's amazing how they're not even pretending. If somebody tried to write a parody of electoral politics in the United States, they could not come up with something as ridiculous as what we actually have. They just couldn't. That's why House of Cards was just completely believable. It was like, well, this is, yeah, that's totally plausible. Actually, some of those Democrats actually care about the environment in that show. I don't know if this is even all that realistic. But check this out. This is pretty good. All right, so here's Obama, and here he is giving his endorsement for Joe Biden.
It belongs in the White House. And that's why I'm so proud to endorse Joe Biden for President of the United States.
He got the job right.
Choosing Joe to be my vice president was one of the best decisions I ever made. And he became a close friend. And I believe Joe has all the qualities we need in a president right now.
What are they? Let's find out.
He's someone whose own life has taught him how to persevere, how to bounce back when you've been knocked down. When Joe talks with parents who've lost their jobs, we hear the son of a man who once knew the pain of having to tell his children that he'd lost his.
Okay, so far, his endorsement, we're almost 40 seconds in. So far, all he has had to say is Joe Biden has had hardship in his life. You know who else has had hardship in their lives? Everyone. Every single person who's ever walked the face of the earth. There are parents who have lost children before, and that's very sad. And I have no idea personally what that's like. I'm not a parent myself. I have no idea what it's like to even have a child, let alone to lose a child. But I know it happens to people. And I'm sure it really sucks a lot. I know it really sucks a lot. But it doesn't make you qualified to be president. All right, let's see what else is in this glowing endorsement.
When Joe talks about opportunity for our kids, we hear the young father who took the train home each night so he could tuck his children into bed.
Okay, a lot of that was overstated bullshit. His salary was actually very high. He lived fine. It was comfortable. That whole thing that he struggled. When you look at the salary he was actually making, it was the equivalent of about like $100,000 today or something in that range. So really, he was making a very comfortable salary. He just had a commute where he had to take a train. You know who else has a commute where they have to take a train? A lot of frickin' people. A lot of frickin' people, especially all over the Northeast. So that was overstated bullshit.
And we hear the influence of Jill, a lifelong teacher.
At least Obama didn't claim she was a great doctor like Whoopi Goldberg did. Obama knows that Joe Biden is not a medical doctor. Kudos, Obama. Way to go.
When Joe talks to families who've lost a hero, we hear another parent of an American veteran, a kindred spirit, somebody whose faith has endured the hardest loss there is. That's Joe. Through all his trials, he's never once forgotten the values or the moral fiber that his parents passed on to him and that made him who he is. That's what steels his faith in God, in America, and in all of us. That steel made him an incredible partner when I needed one the most. Joe was there as we rebuilt from the Great Recession and rescued the American auto industry. He was the one asking what every policy would do for the middle class and everyone striving to get into the middle class.
Did he ask that about the crime spill? How about the Patriot Act? How about the Iraq War? Was he concerned about the middle class for all those things? How about when he voted for Scalia? How about when he did what he did with Clarence Thomas? Was he asking all those questions then? How about when he supported a segregationist?
That's why I asked him to implement the Recovery Act, which saved millions of jobs and got people back on their feet. Because Joe gets stuff done. Joe helped me manage H1N1 and prevent the Ebola epidemic from becoming the type of pandemic we're seeing now. He helped me restore America's standing and leadership in the world on the other threats of our time, like nuclear proliferation and climate change. Joe has the character and the experience to guide us through one of our
darkest times. That's the end. Got cut off there towards the end. That's so watching that thing, would you know like what, like imagine you just had a blindfold on or something and you didn't even know who was talking there and who they were endorsing and what they were referring to. Like everything was kind of like, would you know if they were even talking about a Republican or a Democrat? Like, would you even know? Like his faith in God, and he's persevered, and he's had a rough family life, and he was my VP, and here's a couple good things that we did, according to, you know, my interpretation of it. Really, they just gave a bailout to the banks while leaving Main Street behind. They remembered Wall Street, forgot about Main Street. But would you even know? I mean, he said nothing in 2 minutes, which again, Obama, he is flawless at that. There's never been anyone in the history of American politics so good at saying absolutely nothing, but making it sound really nice than Barack Obama. He mastered it. He freaking nailed it. That guy, he could say a whole lot of nothing. All he said in that 2 minutes was, Joe Biden was my VP and we got along, and he's a family man who's overcome some tough times. That's it. That's it. That's all it takes for someone to apparently lead us out of climate catastrophe. Joe Biden. He doesn't mention that Joe Biden has been on the wrong side of pretty much every issue his entire career. He doesn't mention the Iraq war. He doesn't mention all the conservative justices that Joe Biden has supported. He doesn't mention that Joe is pro-fracking. He doesn't mention that Joe is one of the only Democrats, even an establishment Democrat, who is against net neutrality. He doesn't mention that that's because Joe started his campaign at a Comcast-funded dinner. He doesn't mention that Joe doesn't give a hoot about veterans, that Joe mocks and jeers immigrant activists who are worried about their community. He doesn't mention that Joe tells environmental activists to pound sand because his climate plan was relevant in 1986 and hasn't been updated since. He doesn't mention that Joe's, quote, concessions to the left is, oh, I'm going to lower the Medicare age to 60. And I might eliminate some debt for some people. A lot of asterisks here. Those were Joe Biden's, quote, concessions. Barack Obama doesn't mention any of that. Joe's a family man. Joe's had a rough, he's experienced loss in his life. You mean like every other human being that has ever walked the face of the earth? Yeah, like that. Like that. And when you look at, you know, all the compassion he shows with things like the crime bill and the Patriot Act and the Iraq war, he sure does have that compassion for other people. What a nothing endorsement. And this is the guy who leaned in and put his thumb on the scale to make sure Biden was the nominee. Barack Obama started making phone calls. And all the candidates, like a set of dominoes, just fell into place for Joe Biden. And this is what our system does. The DNC anoints someone, and everyone else eventually needs to fall in line. And that's where your loyalty is. If you're one of those people in electoral politics, your loyalty is to a cult-like oath you made to Tom Perez, a corporate goon who stands for absolutely nothing. That's your loyalty. Wow. He said nothing. Like, he said literally nothing for 2 minutes. He's like, well, Joe Biden, he took a train once. He took a train, and it was a longer train ride. He brings up that story a bunch. In reality, he was making the equivalent of about $100,000 a year, and he just had to take a train for a little while. Most people in that same circumstance would never even bring it up. Like, most people would never even bring that up. Yeah, I live in, like where was he, in Delaware or Pennsylvania at that point? But he wasn't living in a place that was all that expensive. He just had to take a train He was making the equivalent of like $100,000 a year. Most people wouldn't even think like, oh, that train ride was kind of long. But Biden tried to build an entire brand on it. Yeah, I'm an Amtrak guy. What a joke. I mean, so this is your guy. You wouldn't even know. You would not even know if Barack Obama was talking about a Republican or a Democrat. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. He talks about faith in God. This sounds like a speech a Republican would give about some other blank suit Republican. But instead, it's a blank suit Democrat talking about another blank suit Democrat. Wow. This is anyone excited for November? Like, is anybody remotely? I mean, the enthusiasm. I mean, poll after poll shows the enthusiasm gap for Joe Biden was even lower than Hillary Clinton. It was even lower than her. Hillary Clinton, who everyone keeps saying, well, Hillary Clinton was so disliked. And yes, she was. But there was some enthusiasm around her because some people were like, oh, it's a female candidate. And that's a big deal. I won't look into the details about this female candidate, but it's a female candidate. Joe Biden doesn't even have that identity politics box checked. He's another old white guy. So it's like his enthusiasm gap is even lower than Hillary Clinton's. And Hillary Clinton lost. What do you think is going to happen with Joe Biden? But Barack Obama. I mean, that's the best. He worked with this guy for 8 years as his VP. That's the best he could come up with. He kind of skirted around 1.5 policies, kind of talked about the fact that the guy has had tragedy in his life like every other human being that's walked the face of the earth. And that he was his friend when they were working together. That's it. That's all in 2 minutes. That's all he could come up with for his VP. Imagine close colleagues in your life. Imagine just somebody and just keep it professional. Don't even think family or friends or anything like that. Just think like close colleagues in your life with whatever it is that you do. And it doesn't have to be your job. Maybe you're a musician. Imagine like your closest bandmate. And for 2 minutes, you really got to say that as a professional, what that person means. And someone calls you and they're like, give a job recommendation to this person. And it's someone who is a close colleague of yours. Someone who, in my case, it would be someone like Graham or Jimmy or, somebody that I go on the road with, somebody that I collaborate on their show regularly. And you got 2 minutes to really just say like why that person's work is important, why they're passionate about what they do, why what they do. And that's the best you come up with, what Obama just did for Joe. Like, oh, yeah, he's a family guy. He has a family, and some hard stuff happened, and he overcame it because he likes God. And, I mean, it sounds like someone went up to Barack Obama. They woke him out of a deep sleep, and they were like, okay, you need to give this endorsement for this person. And then they put the name in front of him. And Barack Obama's like, I've never met this person before. And they're like, yeah, but you have to do it. It's an improv exercise. And he's like, okay. And he makes stuff up on the fly. That's honestly what it sounds like. It sounds like he just made a bunch of stuff up about someone he doesn't even know. But this isn't someone he doesn't know. This is his vice president for 8 freaking years. Arguably his closest colleague. And that's all he has to say. His faith in God made him get through tough times. And here's one thing he did that I kind of remember that I think was okay. And he took a trade. He took a trade. He's the guy. He's got to be the guy. They couldn't write this movie script. They could not write this movie script. Wow. I mean, but this is real. Little cat hair lingering. Like this is for real. How does anyone take our electoral politics seriously? Like, how does anyone take it seriously? I don't know how you can at this point. The game is rigged, and we need a new game. It's just rigged. It's completely, we need a new game. This is absolutely absurd. This is absolutely absurd. A demented corporatist who likely has dementia and is an alleged rapist is going up against a plutocrat con man, and you're supposed to choose. You're supposed to choose between these ridiculous choices and think that if we have another pandemic, either one of them will be remotely qualified to handle it. And I know Trump's, it's horrible the way Trump's handling this pandemic. But Joe Biden, you think Joe Biden could lead anything? Wow. I mean, it's like people pretending professional wrestling is real.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your